Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. As you guys saw by the title, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So go get comfy, grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi Daisy. For this video, I would like to stay anonymous. This story is about an old house my madrina, my godmother, used to live in. It all started one night when my madrina's husband got up to use the bathroom. It was around 3 in the morning, that eerie hour when everything feels just a little heavier. As he walked down the hallway, he saw a little boy standing there. He thought it was my little cousin since he was spending the night, and he gently said, "Mijo, go to bed, it's late." The little boy turned to look at him, and then walked straight through the wall. My tío froze, terrified, realizing this was no ordinary child. Not long after that, my madrina had her own terrifying experience. She told me she was getting ready to go to sleep when she suddenly started hearing music in her room. At first, she thought maybe it was coming from outside, but the sound grew louder, closer. Then out of nowhere, she saw a little boy and a man dancing around her bed, moving in circles as the strange music played. Panicking, she screamed for my tío, who was outside at the time. She said she barely remembers what happened next, only that her vision started to fade, like she was about to pass out. And then they were just gone. She never saw them again. Eventually, my madrina and her husband moved out of the house, and that's when my family moved in. At first, everything seemed fine. The house was quiet, almost peaceful, but it didn't stay that way for long. We started hearing footsteps at night, like someone was walking through the halls. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in strange places. And then, my parents began to fight. At first, it was small arguments, but soon it escalated into something darker. Screaming, violence, and pain. The house itself felt unbearably heavy, like the walls were closing in on us. Whenever you walked through the door, you felt this overwhelming urge to cry, and no one knew why. The strangest part, my madrina and her husband had gone through the same exact thing when they lived there. The relationship had always been filled with constant fighting and chaos. It was like whatever haunted that house fed on anger and misery, slowly tearing families apart. We had multiple spiritual cleanings done, helping to clear whatever darkness was there. But no matter what we did, nothing changed. To this day, we don't know exactly what was in that house. All we know is that it loved watching families fall apart. And it wouldn't stop until we were gone. Hi Daisy, my name is Reina. This is something that happened to me recently, and I thought I'd share. It was a bright Wednesday afternoon, and I was babysitting my 8-month-old niece. Her parents had left a while ago to do their own thing. Time passed, and my niece and I were watching some TV to pass time, until I heard the front door open and then slam shut. My mind immediately thought they were back, so I didn't try to get up since they usually come to my room to get my niece. Maybe about 10 minutes went by, and after the door slam, I didn't hear anything else. I started to feel weird about it, but decided to stay put with my niece. That's when I heard voices. Not just any voices, but my brother and his fiancée talking. It was strange because I could hear them, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. It sounded like they were right in front of my bedroom door. The layout of my house is open, so their room is directly across from mine. Then I heard their bedroom door close. I was confused, but again, I didn't pay much attention since I was holding my niece. Moments later, I heard my parents' room door slam. In my house, it's common for the doors to close on their own because of the air conditioning, but never slam, which is exactly what I had heard earlier. At that point, I decided to text my brother and ask if he was home. To my surprise, he said they weren't home and were still in town. My face froze. If they weren't home, who did I hear? My mind immediately went to a break-in, but it sounded just like them. I quickly got up, locked my bedroom door, and held my niece tightly in my arms to protect her. I texted my parents, and my dad rushed home to check the entire house. It was completely empty, untouched, like nothing had been moved or disturbed. So, what did I hear? Hello Daisy, my name is Luis, and I'm from a small town in Gooding, Idaho. Growing up, I experienced a lot of paranormal activity, but there are two encounters that have truly scarred me, ones I'll never forget. I was raised by my grandmother since I was very young, and most of my paranormal experiences happened in her house. My grandmother was diagnosed with arthritis at a young age, and over the years, her mobility became very limited. Because of that, I would take care of her, cooking, cleaning, and helping her with whatever she needed. One day, she asked me to do the laundry while she started dinner. I gathered all the clothes and headed down to the basement, where the washer and dryer were located. The moment I started going down the stairs, I felt a strange, heavy vibe. It was cold, and I had the unsettling feeling I was being watched. I tried to ignore it and continued with the laundry. As I was putting clothes in the washer, the feeling got worse, like I wasn't alone down there. That's when I suddenly heard my name being whispered, but in a deep, old, chilling voice. Luis. My heart dropped. I knew immediately it wasn't my family. They always called me Güero. Frozen in fear, I didn't move. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a dark figure standing next to the water heater. My heart started racing, and before I could even react, the figure started walking toward me. Panicked, I dropped everything and ran toward the stairs. As I raced up, I heard heavy footsteps running right behind me, like it was chasing me. When I reached the top and turned back, I saw the figure standing at the bottom of the stairs. That's when I knew this wasn't my imagination. It was real. Then, right before my eyes, the figure dropped to all fours and charged up the stairs toward me. I slammed the door shut, closed my eyes, and began to pray desperately. Suddenly, everything stopped. Over time, I tried to convince myself it didn't happen. But deep down, I could never forget it. Eventually, I told my grandmother about the experience. Her response didn't bring me any comfort. She simply said, "Mijo, no tengas miedo. My son, don't be afraid." The way she said it, without denying, made me realize she knew something was there in that house. Fast forward to now, I currently live in Las Vegas, Nevada. About 4 months ago, I moved into my first apartment with my significant other. Our schedules were opposite because of college and work, so we usually only saw each other at night when he got home. One day, I came home early and decided to take a nap since I hadn't slept well the night before. I slept for about an hour, and when I started to wake up, I experienced sleep paralysis. I opened my eyes but couldn't move. That's when I saw a black figure standing in the doorway, facing me. It had long, sharp claws, and as I tried to scream and move, all I could hear was deep, sinister laughter. Suddenly, it was like I was knocked out. The next time I opened my eyes, I could move again. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a bad dream. Later that day, I was listening to your scary stories on my TV. Something I love to do, LOL. And as nighttime came, I went to my room to lay down. The lights were off, and I was scrolling through TikTok, waiting for my boyfriend to get home from work. The bedroom door was slightly open, like usual, since my cat likes to push it open whenever she wants to come in. A few minutes later, I heard the door creak open more, but I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was just my cat. Then, I felt a small shift on the bed, like something had touched it. Again, I figured it was my cat. But moments later, I felt the weight of someone sitting down near my feet. Smiling, I thought it was my boyfriend coming home early. I simply said, "Hi, how was work?" But there was no response. Confused, I looked down, and my blood ran cold. Sitting at the foot of my bed was a black figure, facing away from me. Then it started laughing, a deep, terrifying laugh that froze me in place. I screamed and quickly pulled the blanket over myself, praying as loud as I could. Dulce nombre de Jesús, María y José, sweet names of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. My dad had always told me to say this prayer if I ever encountered something truly evil. As I prayed, the laughter grew louder and louder until it suddenly stopped. I jumped out of bed, turned on the lights, and kept praying until my boyfriend came home. When I told him what happened, he immediately believed me. He shared that just a couple of days earlier, someone had been knocking on the bathroom door while he was home alone. At that point, we both knew we couldn't stay there anymore. We moved out right away. Our new home feels so much better. No strange energy, no weird vibes. Nothing like that dark, oppressive feeling from the old place. Hi Daisy, my name is Nadia. When I was younger, my sister, cousin, and I often visited a family friend's house, just around the corner from where we lived. It was a place we went pretty frequently, usually spending hours playing in the backyard. One day, while we were there, a woman arrived with her daughter, a girl none of us had seen before. While we played as usual, she stood out apart from the group, watching us quietly. She kept repeating in a calm but unsettling voice that she had seen the devil before. We assumed she was just trying to scare us or get attention, so we brushed it off as a joke. Later that evening, as my sister, cousin, and I continued playing in the backyard, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. The girl began pointing toward the street behind us, crying out repeatedly, "I see the devil! I see the devil!" She then broke into uncontrollable sobs. Startled, we turned around to see what she was pointing at, and to our shock, there was a dark, shadowy figure floating across the street. It appeared to be wearing a long black trench coat and a black hat. It had no visible legs or arms, and it moved eerily and silently. The girl continued to point, unable to form a sentence through her sobs. My sister and cousin began crying. I was frozen in place, too stunned to move. We all ran back into the garage where all the adults were. The girl collapsed into her mother's arms. The adults quickly tried to calm everyone down. Eventually, we said our goodbyes and left. We never saw that girl again and never went back to the house ever again. Hi Daisy, this is a story my grandma told me when I was little, and to this day, I still don't know if it was just an old folk tale meant to scare us, or something real that the family just tried to forget. Back in the late 1980s, in Guyana, my mom and her sister used to go fishing for catfish near a shallow creek deep in the bush, about a 30-minute walk from the village. Grandma always warned them not to stay too late by the water, especially near dusk. She'd say, when the sun touched the trees, the spirits touched the earth. But that day, they stayed late. They had caught a big catfish and were too excited to leave right away. As they were packing up, they heard something splash in the water. At first, they thought it was just another fish. Then they noticed something strange. The bush had gone completely silent. No frogs, no birds, no wind, just silence, accompanied by a heavy, unsettling feeling that they were being watched. That's when my aunt turned around and saw it. A tall, pitch-black shadow standing across the creek. It didn't move, it didn't speak, but the air grew so heavy it felt like something was pressing down on their chests. My mom whispered, "Don't look at it, just walk." But Auntie kept staring, and then it smiled. They ran. When they got home, my aunt couldn't speak for hours. That night, strange things started happening in the house. Footsteps echoing in the kitchen, whispers coming from empty corners. Soon, Auntie began sleepwalking. Every night at 3:13 a.m., she would stop in front of the mirror and whisper something no one could understand. My grandma tried everything: salt at the doors, prayers, even burning bush medicine, but nothing worked. One night, Auntie stood barefoot in the middle of the yard and said, "It's waiting for me. It's right behind the mango tree." No one else saw it, but the smell of wet earth and something rotting filled the yard. A week later, Auntie packed her clothes and left. No goodbye, no note. My mom said she never saw her again. When I asked Grandma what really happened, she just said, "They look back. That's the mistake. You never look back when something follows you out of the bush." And the creepiest part? That same creek is still there. People say that if you go after sunset, you'll see the shadow too, watching. Hi Daisy. When I was younger, my dad told me a terrifying story from when he was 15 years old, back when he was still living on his family's small ranch in Michoacan, Mexico. He said that his mother was very spiritual and would always warn him never to leave the house at night because, as she would say, that's when the evil comes out. But, like many teenagers, my dad didn't really listen. One night, he decided to sneak out of the house and wander around. As he walked, he eventually came across a dried-up well. From inside the well, he heard a faint whimpering sound. Curious, he peered down and saw a tiny puppy, so small it looked like it was only about a week old. Feeling sorry for the little creature, he carefully picked it up and started heading home. But as he walked, he noticed something strange. The puppy began to feel heavier and heavier with every step he took. At first, it felt like it weighed just a pound, but soon it felt like 10 pounds, then 20, then 30, until it became so heavy that he couldn't hold it anymore. Frightened and confused, he set the puppy down on the ground, deciding to just walk back home. He had only taken about 10 steps when he suddenly heard deep growling behind him. When he turned around, his blood ran cold. The small puppy he had been carrying was now massive, the size of a wolf, its eyes fixed on him. My dad took off running, terrified. He said that with every step he took, he could feel the creature getting closer and closer. When he finally reached home, his mother was waiting for him at the door. She asked where he had been and what he had been doing. Out of breath, my dad told her everything that happened. After listening, she immediately told him to bathe in cold water and then stand in front of a mirror and pray for protection and forgiveness. He did exactly as she said. After his shower, he looked into the bathroom mirror and began to pray, pleading for safety and forgiveness. That night, when he went to bed, he experienced the worst nightmare of his life. In his dream, he saw people burning alive, screaming his name, and begging him for help. The sight was horrifying and felt terrifyingly real. But after that night, nothing ever happened again. From that day forward, my dad never ignored his mother's warnings. He never left the house after dark again. So that was it for today's spooky stories. A big thank you to everyone that shared their spooky encounters. I can just imagine the spooky stories that you guys have for us for Halloween time. Definitely send those in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. But anyways, I hope you guys are doing amazing, staying safe, and enjoying these fall times. Would you consider it fall, or is it still summer for you guys? I would consider it fall, but to each their own. But anyways, I hope you guys are doing amazing. Hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.